Monico.
Hi, and I'm Matt, and in our previous video we shared our first living abroad experience in London. At that time we were just in our 20s, and this was the first time living abroad without our parents. And we lived in a super tiny studio together in Earl's Court.
And after 10 years and many adventures later in various countries, we found ourselves in London again. So how did that happen, and where did we end up this time?
Yeah. As you know from our previous video, we lived in London for an internship at the Kensington Park Hotel. So once this was finalized, Monica and I did stay together, but we had to go our separate ways. I continued my studies in the Netherlands.
Yeah, and I took a year off to figure out what I really wanted. Eventually, I ended up living in Indonesia for 6 months, then returning to study until I was 30 and got my master's in the Netherlands.
Yeah. In the meantime, I also finalized my studies in international tourism consultancy, but after this was finished, I didn't actually know what to do next, you know. So after some wild choices, and I even ended up in Spain at some point, I found myself in, you might have guessed it, London. I'm not entirely sure how I ended up in London again, but suddenly I saw an opportunity to work there. Perhaps unconsciously, I searched for a way to return. After living in London in 1999, this city has always attracted us. London is such an amazing city, you know, and we're not talking only about the tourist sites and all the other things this city is famous for. We actually love living there, you know, and we always wanted to go back. I love that every neighborhood has its own personality and charm. I love the parks, the architecture, the people that come from all over the planet, you know, and we like those little cafes, you know, and those little shops. And we love that this city gives a special buzz, you know. Yeah. It's like a whole world in itself. At this time we were not living together because Monica was still finalizing her studies in the Netherlands. But we could see each other in the weekends, you know. She would fly to London to see me, or I would fly back to the Netherlands to see her. So as you can imagine, this living experience was totally different than the one we first had when living in London together. By then, it was 2005. I was 27 years old and had found a job in London. Because I was by myself, it would have been too expensive to rent a place alone. Half of my paycheck would otherwise be gone before the new month started. So how would I find a place all by myself? So together with a colleague, we eventually decided to live together to search for a place. Because we had a decent salary and needed a place as soon as possible, we used an agency. It was convenient because they knew the type of area and the type of accommodation we were looking for. It did, of course, cost extra money to find a place, but it was definitely worth it. We finally found a nice place in Fulham. Originally, it was a 3-story house, but they converted it into 2 apartments, something you see a lot in London. We lived on the ground floor. My colleague had the room connected to the garden, and I had the so-called master bedroom. The rent was pretty expensive, so we came up with this genius idea to rent it out, you know, to some friends who occasionally had to stay in London a couple of days a month for work. So you could say we pretty much applied the Airbnb concept already. Anyways, it was fun to share, and I made friends that I'm still in touch with even today.
Yeah, and I visited Matt at least once a month in London. It was great, and at one point we were even thinking of finding a place for ourselves there again. But then this opportunity came up for me to move to Indonesia to work on a project. And as you might have seen in previous videos, I was in Indonesia for a while during my studies. So it was great to go back to Indonesia again, and this time together with Matt. The project was very short term, but we still decided to give it a go and live in Indonesia for at least 1 year. And we will share a more detailed video on our experience there soon.
Yeah. Anyway, when the year had passed and we had to move away from Indonesia, we asked ourselves if you could choose a place to live, where would it be? Within seconds, we both agreed to head back to London. So for me, this was the 3rd time. We just couldn't come up with another better place to live.
We returned to the Netherlands and started searching for jobs in London. Once we both had found something, we packed 2 big suitcases and headed back to our city of love.
Yeah, and at that time we were just in our 30s and both had full-time jobs. So this time the standards for an apartment and the way we wanted to live were totally different. We could now afford more rent and could find a place entirely for ourselves.
The house hunting process was also different from the previous times. All of a sudden, there were options to search online, not as many as today, but there were platforms where we could actually see a whole list of apartments and make appointments.
Yeah, and from our previous experience, we learned that living in the center, let's say zone 1 or 2, is fun, but the prices are crazy expensive, especially for the number of square meters what you get. And from our great experience in Fulham, we decided to check areas further away. As long as there was a tube station, you know, we were fine.
Yeah, and obviously, if you are able to live together, then you have more choices and a lot more value for your money when it comes to renting. So we felt really lucky when we found a nice place online in Hammersmith, just 200 meters from the Thames River.
Yeah. The great thing about London is that they mix these council flats with private property owners, ensuring that the area does not get monotone. The downside is that you can end up in a flat where there is a mix of council flat people and private owners. Which is okay, but unfortunately the walls of our apartment seem to be made from cardboard. And since we were often working night shifts, we suffered from insomnia from the wannabe rapper living above us, you know, who was practicing at odd hours. And we're not even mentioning the neighbors next to us who were fighting all the time, right?
Yeah. Luckily, we could end the contract if we were able to find somebody else to take over the apartment. In London, if you're in a good location, this is very easy to achieve. So we were able to find new tenants, and through the Gumtree website, we found our next and best place.
Yeah. We were lucky to find it, even though it was temporary. The owner of the house was going to Mexico for a year, so she was renting it out for that period of time. In the end, she stayed there for almost 2 years, so we had that place much longer.
Anyway, despite it being so dirty, having carpet everywhere, we still don't get the obsession for carpet.
No.
And the old sliding windows didn't close properly, so it could get really cold.
Yeah.
We loved the place. It was pretty big and we paid £1,000 per month.
Yeah. It was located in Twickenham, which is a neighborhood next to Richmond across the Thames River. Both neighborhoods have a village feel to them with a buzzing vibe. The parks were amazing, the cafes along the Thames, and you never got bored, you know, when walking through those little cobblestone streets.
Yeah, we really highly recommend checking these areas if you're looking for a place in London.
Yeah.
Of course, because we are Dutch, we had our bicycles to move around, and while it wasn't located along a convenient tube line, we didn't mind taking the bus to get to a station along the Piccadilly line to go downtown.
Yeah.
And from the St. Margaret station, which was around the corner of our house, we could also take the train to Waterloo and be there in around 33 minutes.
Yeah. But after living in London for 4 years and heading towards 34 years old, we were started to talk more about a different quality of life, you know. The rent we paid was the equivalent of a mortgage for an entire house in the Netherlands. This is when we decided it was time to leave London for good, with pain in our hearts, right?
Yep, yeah.
From there on, we moved back to the Netherlands to start a new life in Rotterdam, where we could buy a 3-story old townhouse from 1898. We really have great memories of living in London, and we recommend it to people to go there. But only if you're in your 20s, beginning of your 30s.
Yeah, exactly. London is a great place to kick off a career, but when it comes to living, don't be shocked when half of your salary goes to living expenses alone. So how about now, because we are in our 40s and have a son, would we still recommend living in London?
Don't think so. I can imagine that when you're in your 40s and you are still single, you know, you have a good job, that's fine. But if you're already thinking about having a family, you know, then it's still possible, but then again, you need to have loads of money. Having a family in London will definitely drain your bank account.
Also, as a family, we can imagine it's hard work to be able to create a quality of life in London. Everything is so expensive, and most importantly, there is a rule that your child must go to a school in the same neighborhood as you are living in.
Yeah, which makes sense if you think about it. But we heard that people in London even rent a small room in a good neighborhood so their child is entitled to go to a school there. Well, that says enough about the quality of schools and of course the quality of those neighborhoods.
I think that if you don't have children, then your neighborhood is somewhat less important than if you have a child. As a family, you want your child to be able to go outside, live in a residential neighborhood with less pollution and traffic and so on. So the area in Twickenham and Richmond could be ideal for families. And on the other hand, we never lived in neighborhoods in the north of London. I met people who have lived in Finchley and they really love living there and would have wanted to stay there when they had a child, but then again, it would have been too expensive to live there.
Yeah. So, if you're thinking of immigrating to the UK as a family and want to live in London, then we think you should reconsider, unless you earn at least £70,000 a year and you're okay with living in the suburbs.
Yeah, there are many other cities in the UK that offer nicer places to live, perhaps even a garden. And it would be wise to look further than London alone.
Yeah. So for us, London is definitely off the table. Now that we have a son, we want to find a place to live where we can spend more time together than just working all the time, just to pay the mortgage. Working less in London is very unlikely, as you can imagine.
Yes, and we are searching for more quality of life. Unfortunately, we don't believe we will find that in London, but we will definitely visit it soon again for our romantic memory lane tours.
Yeah. Well, that's it for today. We hope you found this video useful and that it has made you think about whether or not London is an option for you. We would like to know about your ideas.
Perhaps you have a totally different idea of London and think that it is a great place to move to with children. You can share any thoughts in the comments below.
If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please consider doing so. If you like this video, you'll make us very happy if you press the like button. We hope to see you soon in one of our next videos and thanks for watching.
Bye-bye.
Bye.